March 16, 2019 is the day that I ordered my first Zigbee stick for Home Assistant. And now, 6 years later, let's talk about how things have changed, what you should look at your next coordinator for Zigbee, and also where to be careful. Yes, today we are going to be talking about Zigbee, a bit of thread, in Home Assistant. We'll start in a couple of seconds. A lot of things have changed inside Home Assistant, but also around Home Assistant, and support for various protocols, for example, Bluetooth support in Home Assistant, Z-Wave support in Home Assistant, Zigbee, but also Thread and Matter have really evolved. Just a couple of years ago, we didn't have Matter, we didn't have Thread, but we did have Zigbee. If you started back then, most of you probably went for the CC2531 stick. This was a Texas Instrument chip that unfortunately you also had to buy a special debugger to be able to program it. But this was 5, 6, 7 years ago. What you should be looking for today, how to avoid to get burned, and what are some of the sticks, coordinators that I'm recommending today. No, this video is not sponsored, and no, I will not be talking about every stick on the market, because I simply haven't tested them. I did test quite a bit of them, and I will be going through each and every one of them. But before we start with the first one, I want to talk about this page here. If you are looking for a new coordinator, if you want to replace your old coordinator, I would really recommend that you start with this page, and the link will be of course down in the video description. This is an awesome page on the Zigbee2MQTT documentation site, and no matter if you are going for ZHA or Zigbee2MQTT, a lot of the things you can check here. Between various sticks, either USB sticks, Ethernet sticks, or whatever other type of stick there is for Zigbee, there are a couple of big differences. First one are also the oldest one, and these are the Texas Instrument ones. For a long time they were the only option available on the market. A couple of years ago we started seeing Amber ZNet based devices or Silicon Labs devices. Besides Texas Instruments and also Silicon Labs, we also have Dresden Electronic or Deacons. Deacon 1, Deacon 2 and the newer Deacon whatever it is called now. Then we also have experimental version of coordinators, but this is not something that I would recommend to anyone, besides if you want to test how they work. These are the Z-Gate and also Z-Boss based, a Nordic semiconductor. So what are the biggest differences? For example, for Dresden Electronic it is no. Actually, yes, Dresden Electronic can work and a lot of people are using it and a lot of people will be using it in the future, but I first haven't tested any one of them. Second of all, I know that there were some issues, and if you read the documentation here, there are some things that you cannot do with Deacons that you can do with other sticks. And that means that if you are buying a new stick, why would you settle for something that has a lot of attention and things don't work even before you buy it? Texas Instrument or Silicon Labs. Either one of them is good for you. Texas Instrument has been longer on the market, but Silicon Labs is newer. But Texas Instrument also released the newer versions of the chips, but also did the Silicon Labs. So no matter what way you go, Texas Instrument or Silicon Labs, you will be good to go. But let's start talking about individual devices. First one is a device that I wouldn't recommend today, but I'm mentioning it here so that you know to avoid it. And this is this Zigbee CC2531. This device can still be found on AliExpress, also on the Sonoff or ITEAD official website, but this is a device that I wouldn't recommend in 2025. The reason for that is that it's just too old. It doesn't support Zigbee 3.0, it doesn't support a lot of devices, it has terrible antenna, so avoid it if you can. If you see somebody selling this device, and you see a good opportunity to buy it for $1, $2, $3, instead of that, just don't buy anything. Next device that I still can recommend, because this is the device that I'm still using. This was actually the main device that I was using for my setup until 2-3 months ago. This is this CC2652RB. If you go and opt out for this device, it will serve you well. It has external antenna that you can actually replace with some other antenna if you want to try if it works better. The device itself was for a long time #1 recommended device for Zigbee2MQTT. It is working great with the ZHA also, and although the device itself is a bit older now, it is still working and a good workhorse. So if you are looking for a traditional Texas Instrument device, this one will work with both ZHA and also Zigbee2MQTT. As a matter of fact, all devices besides that one that we didn't talk or I recommended you not to buy it, every single device from this video will work both with ZHA and Zigbee2MQTT. If you do not know what the difference is, I will be posting a link to my previous video where I talked about differences between ZHA, Zigbee2MQTT and why I'm preferring one over the other. Things did change a little bit, but I'm still preferring Zigbee2MQTT over ZHA. Although if you want simple, out-of-box, great experience, ZHA will work for most of the people. So would I recommend this stick? Yes, as I said, I would, but there are now newer devices. Second stick that is very popular or was very popular in the community is this Sonoff ZB dongle version P. There is version P and also version E. There are differences, there are big differences, but looking from the perspective of today, 2025, you can go either with one or the other. But on the other hand, if you are buying a device to replace your older device, or if you are considering to go Zigbee route, I would recommend that you go with the E version. The biggest difference between the P and E is that P version is working with the Texas Instrument SoC or chip, while the E version is working with the Silicon Labs. Previously, the E version or Silicon Labs had less support or didn't work well with Zigbee2MQTT, but this has been fixed and now you can work with both Texas Instruments and Silicon Labs in Zigbee2MQTT. On the other hand, ZHA worked better with Silicon Labs because Home Assistant's own hardware, which I will mention in just a couple of seconds, was based on Silicon Labs. In 2025, as I said, both E and P version will work well. The advantage of the E version is that the stick is a bit smaller, but it also has the power amplification or radio amplification or radio gain that you can turn on or off inside the firmware or inside the configuration. That means that the signal can be boosted. That is something that E supports and the P version of the stick doesn't support. P version is good, but I would still recommend at this point E version. The price for both is the same, $19.90. I did mention a couple of seconds ago SkyConnect, or how it is now called, Home Assistant Connect ZBT-1. Why the name change? Because at some point Home Assistant may introduce different sticks. We now have Zigbee stick. Maybe in the future we will have, I don't know, Z-Wave stick, and that is probably the reason why SkyConnect has been renamed to ZBT1. Would I recommend it? Yes, this is a very good stick. It was developed by Home Assistant for Home Assistant. It is maintained by Home Assistant devs. It is official hardware. There is always firmware update available for it, and it is really a good stick. Is it better than the Sonoff E or some devices that we will be looking at later? That depends. If you want to go mainstream, to have hardware that is definitely supported by the devs of Home Assistant, this is the hardware to go. And note, before some of you start shouting, screaming that, yeah, but there was a recall. Yes, there was actually a recall. Every stick was recalled, all that bought sticks could have replaced them for free, and Home Assistant has fixed the problem. And this is not the problem that was existing for a long time. There was issue with one batch of Home Assistant ZBT1 devices. Would other device manufacturers do the same? I'm not sure. Maybe if you try to open a claim, return it, etc., you would get a replacement. But this was done professionally, and this was done in a way that things should be handled for errors like this. There was an issue with the hardware, it was tested, device was recalled, replaced, retested, and now once again we have a working device. And no, this was not a problem for Home Assistant developers. This is, as I said, device that was already selling for a long time. This was problem with one batch, with the manufacturer of that batch. So, thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah, I would still give it a thumbs up. But remember, this one doesn't have external antenna. On the other hand, if there is a newer version of the firmware and using ZHA, it will automatically update the firmware of the stick, and that is not the case with all of the devices that we talked previously and some of the devices that we will be looking at after this one. But we also have to talk about elephant in the room, because Silicon Labs has brought us possibility to have multi-protocol devices. What is multi-protocol? Multi-protocol means that we are using the same hardware, same antenna, but the device is talking with Zigbee network, and also via multi-protocol it is talking Zigbee protocol or thread over matter. This was functionality that was promised for SkyConnect, and there is an update on the multi-protocol. It is still in experimental phase, it will remain on experimental, and it is not recommended to use multi-protocol. A lot of people were angry about Home Assistant because, yes, they promised it, but also you must remember that part of the firmware was not directly handled just by Home Assistant devs, it was also relying on third party. And I did talk with devs, and unfortunately they had a lot of issues with it, bugs that they reported were never fixed, the response time was very long, so Donge decided to skip and cut the support out. If you are so worried and want to have SkyConnect or ZBT1 device working with Home Assistant for Zigbee, and also for the matter over thread or thread over matter, just buy two devices. Or wait till the end of the video where I will be talking about something else. So yes, multi-protocol was promised, multi-protocol is not promised anymore, and multi-protocol is not supported. But multi-protocol is not something that is tied in directly to ZBT1. You could of course also use it, for example, Sonoff Dongle E. And still it would not be supported, and still it would be in an experimental mode. All the devices that we talked previously were USB devices. That means that the device or the coordinator must be plugged in directly into the host. It can be either Raspberry Pi, Intel NUC, it can be machine running Proxmox or some other hypervisor, but the stick has to be directly plugged in into the host itself. There are also other devices, such as for example this ZigStar UZG-01, which was the first ever network coordinator that I tested. If I'm not mistaken, this one and the later ones that I will be looking at in this video is also supporting USB connection, but why would you hook up this box to USB port on your host where you can hook it up, for example, to the network switch somewhere else so it cannot be seen, or where it suits better for coverage of your home? That doesn't make sense. But yes, this device and other devices support USB connection and also Ethernet connection. As I mentioned, one of the main reasons you would go for a device like this is that you can have, for example, high availability of Home Assistant. The biggest issue with high availability for Home Assistant is that if you, for example, have two Raspberry Pis running Home Assistant and you have one coordinator, you actually have to unplug it from the Raspberry Pi that just died and plug it into Raspberry Pi that is actually working or started to work. With the Ethernet connection, no, you simply change the line of code and you have your Zigbee network back up and running while you tackle the hardware issue. So having Ethernet connection can be better for high availability. The next reason is also something that I mentioned is you can position it somewhere else where you need to have better coverage, where you have other devices nearby. So you can tuck it in behind your TV set. That is not something that you can do if, for example, your data center is in your basement or in attic. This one is much better. ZigStar UZG is a very good device, and this is the device that I recommended for some time. And when we are actually talking about the device itself, it is running Texas Instruments, but it is using P7 version, and P7 version supports up to 300 devices. Note 100 or 150 direct connections, and the rest is through other hosts on the network. And now comes the tough parts. There were 5 coordinators that I covered in one video, all of them from SMLight Tech. Those were SLZB.6 devices, P versions, M versions, no letters, and also one USB stick. If I'm not mistaken, besides that one big video where I showed you 5 devices from SMLight Tech, SLZB06s, and also SLZB07, I also recorded 3 additional videos, because SMLight Tech is really trying to push things and develop functionality, not just for upcoming devices, but also for existing devices. For example, Matter over Thread. I'm still handling Matter over Thread in one of my networks with device like this. The next one is option to have WireGuard, so you can have remote coordinator somewhere else and hook it up into your home. And yes, let's not forget the official integration inside Home Assistant, and this integration has also evolved, where you can see the state, track, change some settings from within Home Assistant for the remote or not so remote coordinator. Once again, those devices can be either powered via PoE, powered via the USB cable, hooked up via the Wi-Fi network, which I wouldn't recommend, hooked up via the Ethernet cable, which I would recommend, and also hooked up via the USB-C cable, but why? Because you already have Ethernet enabled Zigbee coordinator. So out of all of those devices, what device would I recommend today? I would recommend slash CC2652RB as a tried and working Texas Instrument chip, not the latest version, but it's still working great. I would recommend Sonoff Dongle E, which is good device, but if you are actually buying a new device, want to build up your network, today I would still recommend SLZB 6 devices as top-notch devices that you can get your hands on and are worth every cent you buy. And since there are a lot of versions of these devices, you can look here and decide which one works best for you. You can go either with a Texas Instrument or Silicon Labs, and no matter which way you go, all will work the same. Or if you want to read more, there is also a page describing which one should you choose and why you should choose them. For example, CC2652P and EFR32MG are one that are ranked first. Then CC2652P7 chips or devices based on these chips are ranked second. EFR32MG24 is ranked third, and the last one you should bet your money on is CC2674P10. But this was me talking about Zigbee support. What about upcoming matter over thread or thread over matter support? If you opt out for Dongle E, or for example SLZB06 devices, a lot of those devices can run either Zigbee or matter over thread. Why am I saying that? Because if you buy two devices, one can be for your Zigbee network and the other one can be for your thread network. And that way you will have both of those protocols available inside Home Assistant. Remember, multi-protocol support is not available, it is experimental in Home Assistant for SkyConnect or ZBT1 sticks, but there is option to run multiple sticks. One can run Zigbee and the other one can run thread. Or in this case, you can have two devices on your network somewhere around the home and have both Zigbee and thread supported inside Home Assistant. Maybe you were waiting for an ultimate answer to the ultimate question. What is the best Zigbee coordinator? The one that works for you. If you are currently using Zigbee coordinator, you have no issues on your network, you still have room to grow, you do not have issues with the devices, network stability, I would recommend that you go for device that you already own. If you are having issues, or if you want to upgrade your network, or if you want to buy one for the second home you have, or parents' home, or whatever, then you can look for one of the devices that I mentioned today. Except the first one. But where do I see ability to grow? There are actually two ways on how things can grow. Or three ways, but let's talk about two. First one is to have multi-purpose device, such as the Z station I was testing on one of my streams and unfortunately it didn't go well. I still haven't tried to update the firmware and retry everything. This is a project for future me. The device, as I said, had one box, two antennas and two protocols. One was Zigbee and the other one was Z-Wave. And this is an awesome idea. Unfortunately, I had so many problems with it. But once again, maybe the things have changed, maybe I just need to flash the newer version of firmware, maybe they are in the woods, who knows what's going on, so I still am not sure and I cannot put my verdict on is the Z Station bad device or I just had a bad day. The next possibility is something that comes from the idea of that device. That is to have one device, two antennas, one for Zigbee, the other one for thread. And that way you can have one device that can work on two protocols. And that device, since it will have either one USB-C connection or Ethernet connection, would have one connection to Home Assistant but ability to work with both ZHA and Zigbee2MQTT because they are different SOCs, for example. Or it will be IP device with only one IP address, but for example different ports, where one port is for the Zigbee network and the other one is for the matter over thread. And I'm not saying that from the top of my head, but yeah, that's my opinion on where the things will evolve in 2025. Or shorter version of this video is ZigStar UZG-01, SMLight Tect devices, also Sonoff Dongle E, but CC2652 based chips are all good to go. Dresden Electronic, not recommended, not tested. CC2531, definitely do not go there. or some kind of experimental socks that do not have official firmwares for both ZHA or Zigbee2MQTT. That's it. I really do hope that you did find this video interesting. All the links to all of the devices I mentioned here in video will be down in a video description below. Also the links to Zigbee2MQTT page where you can read more about each and every group of adapters and also each and every specific adapter. Everything will be down in a video description. If you did like this video, if you did enjoy this video, please give me a thumbs up. It really means a lot to me, but it also helps with the YouTube algorithms. If you have any kind of a question, comment, idea, suggestion, or why would you pick one device over the other device, I would like to hear your opinion. But remember, each one of us has right to have different opinion. But before I end up the video, I would like to say thanks to all those wonderful people that are supporting me and that have become YouTube channel members. Thank you for all of your support. But let's not forget each and every one of you who has watched, shared, liked, or commented on my videos. Thank you. If you too want to support the channel, you can do so by clicking the join button down below and becoming a YouTube channel member for only €2 or $2 per month. Or you can go to my outdated merchandise store and get something there. Last but not least, as always, you can send me super thanks and I will be super thankful for that. I will be seeing you next time. Until then, bye bye and have fun.